Hey guys, quick one here today. Winter Wolf's going to talk about The Marvels currently at box office and all its woes and no's and everything else going on with it. I'm going to keep this one fast because I don't think there's a lot to break down here as expected with this movie. Get the big thing right out of the way up front. It indeed opened to a near Marvel low, box office low, capping in somewhere in the 47 million mark domestic for the weekend. That includes the Thursday shows, which puts it right on league with the other big flops of the year like Indy 5 and The Flash. So everybody out there that wanted to talk some nonsense about this is going to be the return to form, even they in the media are starting to acknowledge this for what it is now, that this franchise is going nowhere fast. So we get those numbers right out of the way. We'll move right on to those kind of shill sites and just offer them up the whole, we told you so. We tried to warn you that there's just not a draw for some of these characters, despite some of their individual likability. It's just not there. They need to get back to the drawing board and sort this out, or else profitability and that kind of sustained model that they had through the first three phases is just gone and dead and buried. So let's get that's just out of the way. The Marvels as a movie is fairly straightforward. You're teaming up the three Marvelous characters that they have. They have Photon, not named Photon in the movie, Miss Marvel and Captain Marvel, whose powers become entangled for reasons. We don't know why. It's never thoroughly explained. They have to figure out how to work together to stop totally not discount version of Ronan the Accuser, who wants the other half of Kamala Khan's bracelet set so she can avenge the destruction of Hala that Captain Marvel called when she defeated the Supreme Intelligence in 2018's totally billion-dollar movie that wasn't at all placed between Infinity War and Endgame for reasons. Yeah. So I'm going to go quick. I'm going to give 3 ups and 3 downs because I want to treat these things as fair as I can, trying to put aside some of the instant cynicism. I'll get it right out of the way. Number one on the howls. These are the good things. Called howls and snarls. Number 1, runtime. You might have heard that this one comes in a lot less in terms of time of butt in seat for the movie, and that's true. It was just over the hour-and-a-half mark, which I thought was the perfect amount of time that I wanted to spend with this movie. Truth be told, it's a crap movie, but it's not a crap movie for a lot of the reasons that other entries in Phase 4 and Phase 5 were crap movies. So the cutting down on the runtime made it at least bearable. It wasn't insufferable like Thor: Love and Thunder. It wasn't insufferable like the Eternals. It was just kind of a eh. Like I was there, I was out, and 90 minutes later, like I didn't care. Like it didn't bug me that much. So the runtime they had going for it. Number 2 on the howls, and this is probably the biggest of the 3. Iman Vellani, I've said this before on the channel in a bunch of videos, she's absolutely adorable. She's charming as Ms. Marvel. She usually seems like she's the only person interested in being in the project. I take that back. Her family in the Marvels was fair. She's the only person here that seems interested. And maybe it's because in real life she's 15 years younger than everybody else at a minimum, that she's just excited to be part of something that big. I don't know, but I like her. She's cute. She's funny. She does the charming fangirl hero worship thing. She should have picked a better hero, but that's neither here nor there. So she's super likable. She carries most of the lighthearted stuff in the film. So I got to hand it to her. She was enjoyable to watch. I have watched the Marvels, the Miss Marvel series, and I did enjoy her thoroughly in that. So I'm not surprised that I like that in the movie here. And then number 3, and this is the big shocking one here, because I think it's time for Brie Larson to we just need to let this woman be on the redemption arc now. She said what she said 5 years ago. It's time for all of us, myself included, to kind of hold that over her head, her stupid ass remarks about she doesn't care what certain people have to say about movies in terms of critics and things like that. That was 5 years ago. I think I'm over that now. I don't care anymore. She's funny in the league. She's won her awards, so we know she can act. They give her a little bit more in the emotional range to play with in this movie, which was kind of cool. It was nice to see that, as opposed to the lockjawed she-Terminator thing they tried to get her to do in Captain Marvel 5 years ago, which doesn't work. It just doesn't. It doesn't make you empathetic towards the character when she's not supposed to be John Wick. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't work that way to have her just be monotonous and just plodding through a film and just acting like she's not the Punisher, she's not Spawn, she's not supposed to be an anti-hero, so making her an absolute dickweed didn't work in the first movie. Here they actually give her more to do with resolving some differences with Monica Rambeau and with dealing with younger Kamala Khan, which is nice. They gave her some stuff. It's not enough to carry it into like overwhelmingly positive territory, but it's not awful, and I appreciated that. I think the other thing they had going for her and going for them in terms of promotional for the movie is with the strike going on, nobody was out there available to make stupid ass remarks like she did prior to Captain Marvel. So that might have helped them in a way that at least there was nothing that could be taken out of context, or she couldn't, double down and say more dumb shit. So however that worked out, it worked out. Moving on to the snarls. Number one, the story is a god-awful mess. It really is. There's a lot of things that aren't really explained thoroughly. We don't understand why the villain is in the position she's in outside of the motivation of wanting revenge. We don't really ever explain how the powers from the three Marvels characters get entangled, but then also don't include the villain who has the other half of the bracelets. They don't really explain how that entanglement only happens in certain situations, like if there's a rule to why that happened, it was not made clear, so I'm not really with that. And then on top of that, we get a couple of god-awful set pieces that just didn't work. They dragged the movie to a grinding halt. You might have seen the Reddit rumors that talked about they arrive on a planet that where the main aspect of communication, the main mechanism of communication is singing. We're there for like 5 seconds and it just sets up a battle, but there's a musical number that goes along with the singing. And to their credit, I mean, the two people featured in it can sing, so I mean, I guess there's that. But I didn't pay $15 to see Marvel the musical, so I don't care. Pointless. And then the major set piece that comes through at the end of the movie that involves a stupid mother flirting cats. Dude, too much, too long. That's tripling down on a joke that ruined the Nick Fury character 5 years ago. I didn't need any more of that, and it's just dumb. And when they said this was going to be some wacky nonsense leading into this movie, they weren't kidding. It was wacky, and it was dumb. Number two, bottom three Marvel villain, easily. Dar-Benn, totally Wish version of Ronan the Accuser. I don't get it. She was the anti-Gore the Butcher from Thor Love and Thunder, who was the high point of that god-awful mess. I'm not familiar with the actress. Apparently she's married to Tom Hiddleston. Dude, good for you. She's attractive, I guess. But she hammed it up every time she was on the screen with like this wide-eyed psycho look, and like her power level jumps and lowers and jumps and lowers, and you don't really understand that inconsistency. I've been told for 5 years that the folks at Marvel wanted me to believe Captain Marvel is the strongest Avenger, and yet it takes her sidekick, and her protege to fisticuff battle discount Ronan. I don't know, like there wasn't anything clever about it. It did not work for me at all. And then number three, and probably the most disappointing thing, there's really no conflict that arises between any of these characters that's developed in any meaningful way. Like, they set up the framework for a sort of interesting story about Captain Marvel goes through her arc in the first movie, but the unintended consequence of doing that is the destruction of Hala, which leads somehow to the rise of Dar-Benn, the villain in this movie. But we don't really get into how that impacts Kamala Khan's interpretation of Captain Marvel as a hero. Like, dude, if you caused an event that kicked off a civil war, maybe the hero worship isn't justified. So it flopped on that. It also flopped on Captain Marvel's relationship with Photon, not named Photon in the movie, just Monica Rambeau, where this woman's in like her late 20s, early 30s. She's professionally accomplished. She's got some powers from the end of WandaVision. I'll talk about that in a second. But she still hasn't resolved that Captain Marvel went into space and never came back, but she promised she's come back. 30 years have gone by, and somehow she's not over it. Like, she hasn't grown and achieved or accomplished anything on her own. But we see that she has, but she's still angry at Brie Larson. I don't know. Didn't make sense. There was enough interesting stuff there that had they worked on it, had they dug into that, like they did between Iron Man and Captain America and Civil War and some of those other early phase Marvel movies, or between Steve Rogers and Bucky Barnes. Awesome development, some deep stuff there that they needed to go through. All of that's lacking here. And then, just kind of as a bonus, how, guys, they lifted the plot from Spaceballs here as like the villain's mechanism of revenge. Like, this chick was taking portals to different planets in the universe that were important to Captain Marvel, and like stealing their air, stealing their water, diffusing their suns, doing all kinds of stupid shit. And I'm like, all right, I guess that's kind of interesting, but I mean, it's Spaceballs, guys. I mean, maybe they weren't counting on a bunch of older folks not seeing this movie and knowing about Spaceballs. Maybe you youngins don't know, but I don't know. The Marvels, it's not as bad as Captain Marvel. You could watch this probably a second time if you were bored or had a couple of drinks, and it wouldn't really bug you, I guess. For me, I don't need to see this again. it's not, it's still bottom probably 5 MCU overall, but I can't honestly say that it's the trash heap that is most of the other things in phase 4 or 5. But it earned its 47 million, so I think the writing's on the wall when even folks like Variety and Hollywood Reporter being like, The Marvels was a misfire, how could this have been? Like, dude, you should have just been listening to folks on YouTube for a while because they told you. But that's it for me, guys. That's my Marvels review. It's certainly nowhere near even mid. It is bottom 5. If I had to rate it out of 10, it's probably a 4, and all 4 of those points go to Iman Vellani as Kamala Khan. But that's it for me, guys. I will check you in the next one.